This book, Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man, is completely at odds with the stereotypical idea that the enlightenment process is always an easy and blissful experience. Making this video is definitely something personal for me. I've been experiencing my own symptoms of Kundalini Awakening since 2017, and also since then I've experienced several episodes that have left me hospitalized. During my first hospitalization, I spoke openly about the energetic symptoms I was having, such as energy up the spine, flashes of light in my eyes and head, and being cocooned in a gentle energy when I laid down to sleep. But none of what I said was taken seriously, and one psychiatrist was outright hostile, as if it were personally offending him that I wasn't sure about my diagnosis, given my strange experiences. During my subsequent hospitalizations, I didn't mention those symptoms at all, because I knew they wouldn't be taken into account, or worse, I would offend someone's sensibilities. But the energy and strange experiences kept coming, and they continue to this day. I was left on my own with very few people to talk to about what was really happening to me. Looking back, I wish I would have read the book I'm about to talk about early on, when these experiences started for me. I think it would have helped me to feel less alone and afraid, knowing that what I was going through had been written about at such depth. And with the rise in mental health issues in America and around the world, I think it's important that these issues are brought into the conversation and met with understanding and empathy. So whether you're experiencing Kundalini Awakening, your friends or family with someone who is, or you're a mental health professional, my hope is to increase awareness and understanding of this phenomenon. Gopi Krishna was born in 1903 in Srinagar, India. At the age of 34, after many years of practice, he had an unexpected experience during one of his morning meditations. One of his books, Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man, describes this experience and the many ups and downs that he experienced in the years following it. His primary purpose in writing the book was to convince scientists to investigate Kundalini Awakening. The copy I have has commentary at the end of each chapter written by the distinguished American psychologist James Hillman, which I found to be very insightful in its attempts to bridge Eastern and Western thought and to tie together different psychological, philosophical, and theological references. There's a link to this version in the description. Describing the initial experience, which occurred around the Christmas of 1937, Gopi writes, "Suddenly, with a roar like that of a waterfall, I felt a stream of liquid light entering my brain through the spinal cord. The illumination grew brighter, the roaring louder. I experienced a rocking sensation, and then I felt myself slipping out of my body, entirely enveloped in a halo of light. I was no longer myself, a small point of awareness confined in a body, but instead I was a vast circle of consciousness in which the body was but a point. I was bathed in light, and in a state of exaltation and happiness impossible to describe." Anybody who's even briefly looked into enlightenment might have come across similar language. But what is so eye-opening and important about this book is that Gopi Krishna doesn't sugarcoat his experiences. For years after his initial experience, he goes through dark and difficult periods. He experiences a multitude of physical symptoms and shifts in his body. He describes suicidal lows and ineffable highs. Throughout the beginning of the book, he describes the physical and mental anguish he was going through. He writes, "I knew I was dying, and that my heart could not stand the tremendous strain for long. My throat was scorched and every part of my body flaming and burning. But I could do nothing to alleviate the dreadful suffering. If a well or river had been near, I would have jumped into its cold depths, preferring death to what I was undergoing. But he didn't die. Instead, he went on to be a force for positive growth in the world. He became a prolific writer and poet, and he traveled the world giving lectures about consciousness. It's also of note that he talks about divine revelations in the book, and how he had never written poetry in his life until several years into the Kundalini Awakening process. The book describes a lot of the physical sensations and psychological patterns he was experiencing in detail, and I found this to be really helpful. It's helped me to relax and allow this process to run its course. Something I found of practical value was Gopi Krishna's take on his diet throughout the book. And his diet was regimented, and with the support of his wife, he would make sure he had a meal every 3 hours. If he didn't do this, there would be severe mental and physical consequences. And I can attest to diet being incredibly important also. When my Kundalini symptoms first started, I remember not wanting to eat. Eating made me feel further away from the bliss that I felt during the initial experience. So I would barely eat, and that was disastrous for my mental and physical health. Also, I had abruptly switched to a vegetarian diet, and that compounded the situation for me. That's not to say that vegetarianism doesn't work. My point is that I was changing things too quickly and confusing my body. I'm finding that as the process continues, I'm more and more intuitive about what foods I need and when I need them. The Kundalini process requires a lot of energy, so figuring out a diet that works for you is important, as well as other lifestyle factors. It's important to make changes slowly so you don't overwhelm yourself. This book, Kundalini, the Evolutionary Energy in Man, is completely at odds with the stereotypical idea that the enlightenment process is always an easy and blissful experience. Maybe that's the case for some people, but it's not for everyone. It's my belief that how difficult the process is for each person is dependent upon their level of subconscious buildup or psychological traumas that occurred over their lifetime. Someone who doesn't have a lot to work through may not have so much difficulty. But I'm still learning and trying to understand my own experiences with this process. If you or someone you know is experiencing mental health issues and physical energetic symptoms, or you're a mental health professional, it may be worth taking a look at this book. You'll get a lot more from it than you will from this video.